I had said before, I'm not sure if you got it on. Well, greetings from Chicago. I'm here in Chicago because of the funeral of my ex-wife, with whom my kids are very close. It was a long time ago that we parted, but my kids have been very close with my ex, and at this time of her passing, I wanted to be here with them. And it's a wonderful time because I'm getting to connect with family, even a very somber kind of situation. I'm staying with my younger sister here in the area, and it is it's one of those real blessings, ones you feel right away, for me to be here. But I'm also delighted to be able to be with you and to share the message that I've been considering for a while and working on for the last little bit. So, my kids and my ex-wife, probably somewhere around 30 years ago, went to Disney World. And there, Disney World and Epcot Center in particular, we enjoyed what was titled Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, a little video presentation, a film, based on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And I don't know if anybody remembers that movie, but Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, of course, had the kids being very, very small, miniaturized, and finding their way through the blades of grass as they tried to get back to the house because they'd been thrown out in the trash because they were so small they couldn't be noticed. And it took quite some time and some focus for that detail of the kids being very small to become apparent. Well, the film in Epcot Center was Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, and it was as though those of us in the audience were the small ones. But we were seeing a world that was so much bigger than we were. We couldn't believe how big it was and how real it was. It was as big as life, which of course is the title today. I even remember that they had it rigged up so that when the dog sneezed, we got the mist because they had little misters that came out. It was as though the dog had sneezed. This huge dog, of course, because we were the small ones, and this huge dog sneezed on us. But that was a big picture that we were seeing, even though if we take it a step further, they were seeing a very small picture of us, the audience. So that's what we want to talk about today. The small picture or the detail of life, and then the big picture. And we're often talking about them. We're in the context of the discussion of vision, and that's been our theme for the month. And one of the things we've said is that it's important to see things differently, because normally if we just kind of let ourselves go, we see often in error, we see in fear, we see something that is an illusion. So we are determined, as the Course in Miracles says, to see things differently. We're determined to change our perspective so that we can see something that takes us forward and lifts us upward. So let's look at that today. Remember, there are two things we're talking about. We're talking about seeing things in detail, the small focus. Do you know what microphotography is? Microphotography is one of those things where you might see a photographer lying on the ground, pointing the camera very closely at a dandelion and taking the picture. And we then see, as that photograph is made available to us, the detail of the life of that flower. Well, that's kind of like us in certain ways. We can see things in detail. And that's important. It has two sides. It has a side that moves us forward and a side that holds us back. So I want to take a look at both of those sides about when we're looking at that very small detailed picture. Of course, there's the possibility on the negative side of it that we might be stuck in tunnel vision. We might be seeing only a very, very narrow sort of thing. And perhaps that narrow sort of thing is our past, a pattern of our past. We retell again and again and again in this tunnel vision state a story. And this is something that doesn't work for us. Eckhart Tolle says this in The Power of Now, his book. So you see and judge the present through the eyes of the past and get a totally distorted view of it. The need for change, for perspective, when we're stuck in that past, in that tunnel vision, retelling a story and looking at the past. So looking at the past is retelling the story, but we could also be looking in detail at something future. And this is often when we're worrying. We're worrying that something we may have experienced in the past is going to happen again. And so we're looking at it in detail, and we can just feel all of the results of that catastrophe, whatever it is, getting to us. We're focusing on the future, but we're succumbing to fear and worry. So, yes, we don't want to be on that negative side of it. So we can move from that to focusing not in the past and not in the future, but in the present. We can give ourselves to mindfulness or present moment awareness. Of course, this mindfulness is practiced very much in its fullness in Buddhism. And if you're familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh, he was one who shared with us ways in which we could understand that mindfulness, that ability to be in the present moment. There's a story that he tells in one of his books that I like a whole lot. And I want to share just a little bit about that because it highlights this mindfulness. And he says this: if while washing dishes, we think only of the cup of tea that awaits us, thus hurrying to get the dishes out of the way as if it were a nuisance, then we are not washing the dishes to wash the dishes. What's more, we are not alive during the time we are washing the dishes. In fact, we are completely incapable of realizing the miracle of life while standing at the sink. If we can't wash the dishes, the chances are we won't be able to drink our tea either. While drinking our cup of tea, we'll be only thinking of other things, barely aware of the cup in our hands. Thus, we are sucked away into the future, and we are incapable of actually living 1 minute of life. So when we focus on the detail of the past, or focus on the detail of the future, we're not really living. We're not as big as life for sure. We're in fact almost not alive. Focusing on the present, that is the only place that we can make change. That's the only way we can access a different perspective. When we, in the present, can ascertain our heart's desire, can feel it in the present, remember, and set an intention in the present moment. We're not ahead of ourselves yet. Or we can give our attention in detail. Then we have a vision that lifts us up and moves us forward. Let's go to the other example of vision, and that's seeing the biggest possible picture. I don't know if anybody of you have seen a little video that's a cosmic zoom. The view of the video is something that's right in front of us. And then we begin to zoom out and zoom away. And as the zoom continues, we move into light years away, and a vastly different and bigger picture than all we are. And then we could take that zoom and come back again, zooming back into where we are, and go within ourselves and see a vastly bigger picture. So again, in this metaphor of seeing that big picture, the only place that we can experience true vision is when we do that in the present moment, because the past, when we're looking at the big picture, may look at something that we should have done, something that we should have been. It's partly a fearful sort of thing, but it looks at the big past of our lives and say, oh, if I should have, oh, if I only would have. Or we can look again to the future, and we can take an idle desire, an idle wish, and we can blow it up into a fantasy, a big, huge, maybe sometimes very graphic vision, fantasy, but it's not real. So that's the negative side of seeing a bigger picture. And we move again to the idea of the present moment, focusing on truth as we know it, as it resonates with our very being, with eyes of faith. Emerson, whom I like a lot, has something to say about this. He talks about it in the context of prayer. He says, prayer is the contemplation of the facts of life from the highest point of view. So in that present moment, in that place of prayer or meditation, as we often do, we contemplate life in the great picture, the big picture, the highest possible point of view. The writer of 1 Corinthians in the Christian scriptures gives us great sense of promise when we're looking at things from the highest point of view. And it talks about vision this way. And this is the way I learned it when I was a kid. Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. And although I might paraphrase it a little bit differently now, the meaning of that is there. That there is a grand, destiny for us. That we're made to experience that destiny. It's so much bigger than we think of normally. And as we in the present moment are able to give ourselves to that truth and just relax into the fact that there is so much more for us, then we move forward and we move higher. So it's interesting that I'm in a situation now where I have a chance to look back and to look forward, to look at detail, and even to look at the biggest picture, the biggest possible picture. Because I attended the funeral of my ex-wife yesterday, and it was a wonderful eulogy of all of the very positive things. And I was looking at those kind of things, but the priest, friend of mine from a long time ago, who gave the eulogy, also saw the things that didn't work for Karen, my ex-wife, and was able to bring it back to a present moment sense of affirming the truth and seeing it in detail, yes, but also from the highest point of view, to know that the end of physical life is not all there is. We're all on a journey. We've all gone through various things. We've had successes, we've had failures, we've made mistakes, we've done some wonderful things. But when we're able to look at the detail in the present moment, when we're able to look at the big picture, knowing that we are spiritual beings and not just physical beings, we're primarily spiritual beings, and our beginning and our ending are not here, and we see only that small picture. As in the present moment we're able to see that, we have hope. So I ask the question that I always ask: how do I do that? How do I stay in the present moment, not get stuck in thinking about details that are past or fearful in the future, not get stuck in fantasy or in saying I should have or I shouldn't have? And I think it really begins with something that we talk about often, and that's discerning our heart's desires. What are our true heart's desires? Not what are the things that I want. Not what are the things that, boy, my life would be better if I just, and you add whatever it is that it would be for you, but what are my true heart's desires? What are the things that stay with me? What are the things that I know come from my true being within? And if you listen carefully, you'll know them. One of the things that has emerged for me lately is a great desire to visit Cornwall in England. And I'm planning a trip to do that in late spring or early summer. That comes from not just a wish, an idle wish. Man, I'd like to see more of the world, but something within me that is just urging me forward for that. I identify it as a true heart's desire. And so I think how we see with clear vision, how we see life as big as it possibly can be, is that we give our attention to discerning our heart's desires. And I suggest that you can do that by listening. We often talk about listening in the silence. I think it's also important that we see not from our human consciousness, but from the divine consciousness, the Christ consciousness within us. When we see from that place, we see things differently. Discerning our heart's desires, seeing from divine consciousness. It's part of a spiritual practice. It doesn't necessarily come automatically. It's not like falling off a log. It's something that we practice and learn and affirm and move toward and keep in the forefront of our mind in the present moment that this kind of vision, this biggest life kind of vision, is available to us. Donna, I'm thinking you're probably there today, and I know that at least one of the things that we've talked about is a vision for Unity of Payson. Now, I'm speaking to us here, Unity of Payson. A vision that I have, a great desire for our growth and our flourishing. One of the things that Donna and I have talked about, what would it look like if that desire we have for a flourishing Unity of Payson, a growing Unity of Payson, what would it look like? And somewhere there, I think up on the front someplace, is a grid, 5 by 5. And it represents the grid that we might see on Zoom here. For those of you who are with us on Zoom, not only those of us who are here, and look, I don't see what it is, but I think there are 10 or 12 of us here today online, but we see with eyes of faith that grid of 25 of us who are with us, not in person, but in spirit as one. And then we drew out a little seating map, talked about it. It allows for, I think, about 38 people altogether 30 regular seats, and then other participants in the service. And Don, I don't know if you brought that today, but if you did, you put it up somewhere on a board so people can see it. This is the vision that I have for Unity of Payson. A vision from this very time and this very moment, not getting ahead of ourselves, but seeing with eyes of faith the detail even of what our desire is. And seeing the bigger picture, always saying this or something better. Because often we can't see big enough to see that greater picture, that what is possible. And so we always say this or something better. Remember that Honey, I Shrunk the Audience? So if we see in detail, if we have that vision in detail, we have to look very carefully. We have to look to see those kids who've been shrunk, or to see that audience that's been shrunk. And so it takes time of reflection and contemplation and true looking for us to do that. Or if we're on the other side of the equation, if we're looking at that big picture, we allow ourselves in the present moment to see all the wonder of it, all the grand sense of that picture. And we say this or something bigger, this, something more possible, this that is something better. So we see today, from the present moment, both the detail of our heart's desires and the grand picture of all that is possible, because we are not limited. And so it is. Amen.